Warning. This video contains subjective opinions and is not meant to be comprehensive. We're going to walk through the differences about playing D2R on PC with keyboard and mouse versus controller. This is not an instructional video, and this assumes that you already know how the game works with keyboard and mouse and might be curious about how it works with controller. Before I get into any specific things, I just want to address the reality here. Playing this game on controller is going to be slower than playing with keyboard and mouse. The primary value I've found using the controller is that it's just more ergonomic. It's easier to sit down and enjoy playing the game than using a keyboard and mouse all the time. Okay, first up is just general UI navigation. Here I am, keyboard, mouse, control clicking to move items back and forth between the cube, inventory, whatever. Very easy, very convenient with the keyboard and mouse. When we move over to a controller, doing this kind of stuff gets a little clunkier. We do have the option to press and hold to move things across the screen. It's kind of nice, but yeah, it is what it is. Next up here, spending attribute points and skill points. We can use click and control click using a mouse to spend single points or 5 points, and you can even do a shift click to spend all your points. That's great. There are analogs for that on controller. You can spend a single point, you can spend 5 points, and you can even do a press and hold to assign the remaining points. And then over here on the skill tree, no such luck. It's single points, and there is no hold to assign remaining points or anything like that. This next bit is about movement and pathing. Playing on standard keyboard mouse control, the game actually does some work for you when you click in an area that isn't, in direct line. You don't have direct movement access. The game will move you around objects to get to your desired location. Well, at least sometimes. In this case, I can't get out of this corral, but if I click over to the left, the game kind of, okay, we'll go down a little bit for you and moves us over. Now, when you pick up a controller and you start playing this game, you'll realize that there's a lot of stuff that's easy to get caught up on. When you start using a joystick to move, like I just switched over to controller, better buff up, never know what's going to happen. This is a very obvious example, but if I just go left, like where I clicked my mouse a few moments ago, that auto pathing doesn't engage. I'm in full control of my character's position, and I can get caught up on posts, door frames, rocks, all sorts of stuff in the environment. You'd be surprised at what will mess you up on a controller, what will stop your movement, compared to that same item. If you click around it, the game just moves you right around and you don't even notice that it's there. Let's talk about the auto aim that happens using controller in this game. As you can see, I'm on controller here, and the monsters that are being aimed, their little nameplate shows up. That's an indication of what's being targeted. So if I cast a skill, it's going to be targeted it's going to be targeted at that monster. If there are no monsters to target, there's this sort of middle distance that the game assumes you're going to cast at. This works a little different, skill dependent. Teleport works a little different than Blizzard. I haven't done a lot of testing or anything, but it's just something I wanted to call out here. That, and because of the limitations of auto aim, you can't cast or target a monster behind another monster. It's just the nature of the beast, so to speak. So here I am, I got 3 archers. If I wanted to try to get one in the back, you can't name lock, you can't select target and freeze it or anything. It's It's all about line of sight. So that has implications when it comes to doing things like laying down pre-fire, you know, talking bale waves, or maybe you're running through a zone and you want to cast something like this in front of you and drag monsters into it. You just kind of need to be conscious that there is this middle distance, and each ability seems to have its own kind of protocol there. So let's talk about teleporting, because I think teleport's probably one of those abilities almost everybody uses. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. Teleport, I'm kind of demonstrating here that the automatic teleport distance that's built into the game. It's always going to TP this far unless there's a wall. This is somewhat of a limitation compared to keyboard and mouse, because with keyboard and mouse you can literally teleport farther. You can teleport to the very corner of the screen or to the edge of the screen. And we'll get a demonstration of how that looks here. Typical teleport on a controller. It's about 3/4 of a screen or so, unless you go directly horizontal. Here we're going at an angle. There's a horizontal move. You can see we go basically to the edge of the screen. That's great. But if we go to the corners, we lose distance. Now here we are on keyboard and mouse. As you can see, all the way to the very corner of the screen. Pixel perfect teleport right where you want it. This was a big drawback for me moving from keyboard and mouse to controller. But after a little while of playing around with the teleport on controller, it wasn't really a big deal, unless you're really trying to min-max. So there's a distance, clean teleport on keyboard and mouse. I'm gonna drop a piece of gold just to give us like a position. And I'll go do the same teleport on controller, and you can see there's a shortfall there, you know, maybe 12, 18 meters or something. I don't know. I have no idea what distance looks like in this game, but there you go. Now we're going to talk about looting items and all the problems that come with that. Here we are, we're in P8 cows on the Javazon, as it should be, as God intended. Just going to gather up a nice little pile of meat here. Let's get some items on the screen. On controller, you have to position your character on top of the nameplate of the item that you want to pick up, and then hit the pickup button, which just defaults to A. The problem is when you move around on a big pile of items, the game moves the item names, and depending on how things actually fell on the ground, it can be really difficult to get your character in the right spot to get the item. This is one of these things that keyboard mouse players have no idea how frustrating it can be. So this is something that took a lot of patience when I decided to transition over to a different style of play with this game. There are even situations where an item can drop and you literally can't access it with the controller play. It's like next to a wall and you can't put your character there to get the item name highlighted to pick it up. It's kind of nuts. One little trick I've found to not prevent this problem from happening, but to make the game more playable in general, I forget somebody mentioned this somewhere, but you can use the /no pickup option, which is gonna remove item names from showing up at all, and you just don't pick up anything automatically, you don't pick up gold, but you can still toggle the item name display with the button on the controller. So this is nice for melee play, or when you're in tight quarters and there's a lot of monsters. Items start dropping, they get in the way, you can't see what's behind the item. If you use the /no pickup option, it just gets rid of the item names altogether, and you can play the game. And then once you're finished fighting, go ahead and do the thing. And here we're looking at some of the additional options available with the controller, specifically the loot to cube option. This is probably the one of the couple of boons you get using controller. There are no analogs to this in PC. There's no option to loot to cube. You just have to pick up the item and move it into your cube. But on controller, you do have this option. It's very nice, especially when you're, playing endgame. You got an inventory full of charms. You're always looting into your cube. Having a button able to do that's quite nice. And there are some of the other functions of the game that you can toggle with hotkeys, like auto map, etc. And here's a screen that some people might overlook, but there's actually a lot of information on this screen. So if you do choose to play with controller, I encourage you to study this screen for a minute and recognize that we have a legacy toggle. There is no zoom in option as far as I know, but all the defaults are presented here. One additional note about hotkeys. By default, you have access to 12 hotkeys. 6 on one pane, and then with the left trigger modifier, you get access to another 6. And there is a built-in option to give you a new set of skill bars when you weapon swap. So a moment ago, I weapon swapped to buff up with battle orders, and you can see that the entire skill bar changed. So technically, you have access to 24 hotkeys, which is probably more than anybody's going to need. I don't know what kind of crazy builds people are rocking where they're going to use more than 24 abilities split across 2 weapon swaps, but what do I know? That's pretty much it. I wanted to close out by mentioning that there's this really nice application that I found to augment what you can do with your controller on a PC. This application is called WASD. And you can do all sorts of stuff with it. I use it in probably like 1% of its capacity. This isn't an advertisement or anything. I just wanted to call this out because I found it very useful gaming on a PC with a controller. Lets you set up extra button combinations, lets you set up short press, medium press, long press durations. You can do replacements. So, for example, I don't like doing the thumbstick press on a controller. I find it weird and cumbersome. So I used this program to make it so when I hit X and A at the same time, that sends a right button stick press to the game. That's what I use for weapon swap. That keeps me in the flow of the game, and I just like it that way. So I know that there's all sorts of macro tools to use with keyboard and mouse. I've explored some of those as well as other like free options for modifying input from a controller. In my experience, this WASD program is amazing, and it was worth the money. Its free trial sold me on it, and I paid for it. Okay, so to wrap things up here, playing this game on controller can be fun. It can be annoying as well. Frankly, I use both. I play on controller, and when I come back to town, I put the controller down and I do keyboard and mouse to do inventory stuff, running around, talking to Akara, doing that kind of crap. I even sometimes will use the keyboard and mouse when I'm in the middle of a battle and I need to go pick up an item that's difficult to get on top of and pick up with the A button on the controller. That's what works for me. I like it. I get the best of both worlds in that way. So I hope this video was informative, or whatever. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe you already knew all this stuff. Maybe there's something that you were waiting to hear about that wasn't in the video. Let me know. I'd love to add it to my knowledge, and if there's enough information out there that isn't in this video, I'd be happy to update the video and make it a little bit more overarching. So good luck out there. Don't let your PC Master Race mindset prevent you from finding ways to have fun with video games. Goodbye.